All right, we're back again in Phoenix, and it is another great day and so much energy and excitement. I'm Brad Weaber, and I am so excited to be here with these two amazing individuals for the Daniel H. Wagner finalist competition. And I'm here with Pengyi Shi with Purdue University and Jonathan Helm with Indiana University. And I want to mention something. If those of you that know kind of the collegiate thing, these are competing schools, and look at them, they're working together. So talk a little bit about how that all came about.
Well, we actually started from competing schools. In fact, I did my PhD at University of Michigan in industrial operations engineering, and our top rival was where you did your PhD.
From industrial engineering in Georgia Tech. And we have been always ranked #1, and they have been always ranked #2.
We always say it's just because they're bigger.
Well, this is so exciting for you all to be here, and congratulations on being a finalist. And I want to hear a bit more about the team that's assembled, some of the work that went into, and then we'll dive in about, as much as you can tell us about the actual application and that type of thing. So talk to me about all the amazing people that helped you make this happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I can start and then Jonathan can add in. So this all started back in 2020 March, and everyone knows what happened.
Yes.
Yeah, so
How can we forget?
we all saw news that COVID hit New York, and that's when we get a call from a Indiana University hospital saying that, we know COVID hasn't hit Indiana yet, but we know it's gonna come here very soon. So I think Jonathan was talking to some of the people in IU Health back then about maybe doing some joint research, and then they learned, all this work we have been doing on patient flow, and that's why they called us like, okay, we want to know whether we have enough ICU bed, nurses, and ventilators for treating the incoming COVID patients, and do we need to cancel all the elective surgeries, et cetera, et cetera. That's where, we just, both universities just like shut down, and we were at home, and that's where we're, okay, let's use our research expertise and really help our state and help our communities. So that's how we dive into this project. So it started from the predicting what is the patient demand mostly from the COVID patients. So I think it's around June 2020, we already had made a implementation on our initial prototype of this patient demand forecast, and already implemented and has informed a lot of the strategic decision making for all 16 hospitals in IU Health. And I think it's through that 2 months of close collaboration, we really establish a deep trust, and most importantly, we actually let the hospital people see the power of OR analytics. Okay, so then moving forward, they're like, okay, now the first wave of COVID is kind of passed, but they see the power, so they come to us. Can you help us with the day-to-day operations? They have a lot of nurses. I think the system has 9,000 regular nurses, and they often rely on travel nurse to fill in the gaps. And then that's where like, okay, since you guys have some really cool tools, how about you guys tell us like, can we do a better job in our day-to-day operations? I think that's when we too started assembling a team of I would say more than 20 students across a variety of background. We have students from computer science, math, statistics, engineering, supply chain, nursing, and the IU School of Medicine. So we have a really diversified team, and then that's why we moved the project into the current one. I'll let Jonathan talk a little bit more on how we transitioned this.
Yeah, so actually during COVID, COVID was a horrible thing, and yet it really forced the medical system, the healthcare system, to think outside the box in ways that we found could actually become sustainable improvements for day-to-day care. And one of those things that we found is when we were forecasting where patients were going to show up, which hospitals at what times. As you know, COVID happened differently in rural versus urban. So in our state, Indianapolis is our capital. It's about 1.2 million people, and COVID hit Indianapolis really hard in the beginning. And where I'm from, Bloomington, is down about an hour south. It's a much smaller town, maybe about 80,000. And where Pengyi's from is Lafayette, which is, I don't know how size, but similar size.
To
but we're
70,000,
smaller,
yeah.
we're more remote, we're removed from the urban environment. And so what we started seeing was we worked with IU Health and started saying, hey, we can move some nurses, because the state had canceled all the surgeries. So the hospitals were sitting empty, waiting for COVID to hit. It already hit Indianapolis. So we started seeing movement of nurses from Bloomington and Lafayette and some of the other more rural counties into Indianapolis during the surge. And then when Indianapolis started to taper off, it hit Bloomington and Lafayette and Muncie. And so then moved it back out. And so this was so effective that the nursing organization said, could we keep doing this? Is this something that we can do? It doesn't have to be COVID. Could we use this to provide better care, give our nurses better working environment by being properly staffed, and taking advantage of the fact that different hospitals have surges in demand at different times? And so that's kind of really where it came from. And the one thing that was different about doing it in day-to-day versus doing it during COVID, and this is basically was the pitch from the associate chief nursing executive, was during COVID, the nurses would do it because we all felt that we were fighting a battle, that we were all in it together. But during day-to-day operations, you can't just ask someone to wake up at 5 a.m, drive 150 miles, work a 12-hour shift, and drive 150 miles back. That's a little extreme, but it's not terribly extreme because there are hospitals where that was happening. So what they needed was some sort of advanced knowledge of where they might need those nurses so they could give them forewarning. So we created essentially what we call an on-call list. 2 weeks in advance, we say, hey, you're on call. I know you normally work in Bloomington, but you're on call to go work in Indianapolis in 2 weeks. And then 24 to 48 hours, we say, okay, you're going to be called in. You are going to go work in Indy, or no, it's okay. You can stay and work your regular shift in Bloomington. And that's where the analytics comes in.
This is amazing. I mean, this is absolutely amazing. And I want to say, you both have touched me. You said a few words. You said, we want to help our state. We want, I've heard the words we, I've heard help. And, without contraries, there's no progression. So COVID actually did bring some things that helped us become better. I mean, a terrible way to do it, but I'm fascinated by this, and that you were able to set up something that can be taken into perpetuity now and used to create an efficiency model. Did you ever think in your careers you'd be working on something like this?
I hoped, but honestly, I never thought I would work on something this impactful. This is a really big deal, and we think it's not just a big deal for IU Health; it's a big deal for our country, and can be a big deal globally. Yeah.
Well, and also the pressure that you had of knowing that hospitals were making big decisions, like people were not having surgeries because of trying to prepare for this, and granted, some were elective, but some electives are actually very much needed. And so I applaud you for what you've done in this work. So you've touched on this as far as the impact. I mean, where else do you see kind of this analytical formulaic side of this? Where do you see this continue to impact, and how?
Okay, I think our initial pilot was done in May this year for 6 weeks. So we initially had 10 nurses, we call the Delta coverage nurse, participated in the pilot for 6 hospitals. Actually, we got some comment or feedback from the judge reviewing our paper saying, okay, the scale is kind of small to modest. We didn't know until we see our competitors, Intel. It's like, okay, we get it.
It is small.
It is small, but fun fact. I'm talking to Jonathan. And we're like, this is maybe look like a small staff in moving nurses around. We really think is a giant leap, because this creates a completely new paradigm shift in how hospitals think about dealing with nursing shortage. Because traditionally, maybe for 20 years, 30 years, whenever they have a staffing shortage, the only way they know have worked is hiring travel nurse. And during the pandemic, the wage for travel nurse has gone crazy. So before pandemic, I think weekly wage is about 3,000. After the pandemic, or since the pandemic started, easily go up to 5,000 per week. And this drives up the staffing cost for all the hospitals nationally significantly. And when the cost of a health system goes up, eventually backfires to everyone, patients and all the taxpayer. And we believe this move of able to actually show that moving the 10 nurses can gain a significant impact is having a huge potential for telling all the colleagues in the nursing industry that this works.
Right.
Yeah, before we actually started, we too discussed this idea with some of our colleagues in nursing, public health. It's like Jonathan and I are gonna develop some analytics to tell how hospital to move nurse, and their first reaction is, no, you can't move high-skilled professionals around. It's not gonna work. And the good news, here we are. It worked.
For a big award.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to follow up on that. Is that because you were like, what's next, right? In a sense, I think we start with what impact we saw in our own health system, which is 17% reduction in understaffing in the shifts that our Delta coverage nurses worked, 43% reduction in overstaffing versus hiring a non-Delta coverage nurse. We're talking with just those 10 nurses, 340 shifts a year that would have been understaffed that were not. And if you go to the nursing literature, which I do a lot, every understaffed shift is a risk. It's a risk for harm. It's a risk for mistakes, medical errors. It's a risk for a nurse burning out and quitting. A lot of nurses don't last more than 2 years on the job because of, primarily, if you look at the surveys, understaffing, and I don't have enough time to take care of the patients, which is understaffing. Right? So with this sort of vicious cycle, right? We're understaffed, nurses quit. We're more understaffed, more nurses quit. It's not a problem of bringing them in. It's a problem that their exit rate is higher than their inflow. And we're going to be about 1 million nurses short by 2030, I think, nationwide. If you look globally, it's even more dark. So we see this as possibly reversing that trend. If every Delta coverage nurse can be worth, and this is what our measurement was, we basically looked at the amount of understaffing that a Delta coverage nurse reduced versus just hiring a traditional nurse, like a travel nurse or a resource nurse. Every Delta coverage nurse is worth 1.6 to 1.9 hires of a traditional nurse. So you're 1.5 to 2 times the productivity with the same hire, which means less understaffing, which means less people quitting. So we see this actually as the start of the end of the nursing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. That is so incredible. I have loved this conversation. I thank you for sharing, and thank you for taking your fields and helping us all. And I want to ask you, tell me a little bit about your history with Informs. How active you've been when you started, and now here you are up for an award. So,
yeah, well, do you want to start?
Yeah. So actually for today's launch, we had a 10th anniversary reunion.
Oh.
We had a bunch of people get together because 10 years ago we were on the job market. And actually 10 years ago, Informs happened in Phoenix. So here we are now. And it's actually thanks to Ting Long Dai, who's now the VP of Informs for communication and marketing. He organized this reunion. So we're exactly looking at each other where we were on the other side of the table when 10 years ago we were the one who got interviewed.
So everyone out there, look at your future, okay? Beautiful story
and
here.
Today, some of them has to leave for the launch earlier because they're interviewing people this year. Mm-hmm. So it's a long history. Yeah.
Yeah. So I probably started Informs 1 year before Pengyi, but I mean I would say between the two of us, we've worked together for a very long time.
Also 10 years.
10 years. So we've worked together for 10 years. And we have a very similar mindset in that we want to attack problems that are critical pain points for the health system. And we want to do things that have a potential to make a difference, make an impact. So I'm going to say that for quite some time, we've had the Wagner Prize in our minds. These are the things that we feel are really important to show our field that practice, influencing practice, developing analytics, developing models, developing mechanisms to improve systems is important. And in academia, particularly I think in healthcare, in academia, we are the Informs community are the ones that can do it. Because they don't have, typically in most hospitals, they don't have that core competency built up.
No, they don't. And that's a really, really good point. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you both for all that you're doing for Informs and the world. And thank you for what you're doing for something that touches us all, and that's our health system. Congratulations on being named a finalist. And I hope you get some rest. You, road warrior here. I wish you all the best. Have a very, very successful conference. And it has been truly a privilege to sit here and talk to you today.
Thank you very much, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.